The morning sun caught the glass doors of Hamilton Financial Bank as they swung open. A man in a gray hoodie, black running shorts, and expensive but well-worn running shoes stepped inside, wiping a light sheen of sweat from his forehead. Michael Taylor had just finished his usual 5-mile run through the city park. He hadn't planned to stop at the bank today, but as the new CEO of Hamilton Financial's national operation, he liked to drop in unannounced sometimes. The cool air conditioning hit his skin as he entered the marble-floored lobby. 2 employees stood behind the welcome desk, a young woman with straight blonde hair pulled back in a tight bun, and a tall man with carefully combed dark hair. They both looked up as Michael approached, their welcoming smiles freezing slightly as they took in his casual appearance. "Good morning," Michael said, his voice warm and deep. "Beautiful day out there." The woman, her name tag read Rebecca, and smiled tightly. "Can I help you?" "Just looking to head upstairs for a bit," Michael said, gesturing toward the elevator bank that led to the offices above. He didn't usually announce who he was during these visits. The point was to see how staff treated regular people, not how they behaved around the boss. Rebecca exchanged a quick glance with her colleague, whose tag identified him as Thomas. "I'm sorry, sir," Thomas said, stepping forward slightly. "The upper floors are for employees only. Is there something we can help you with down here? Do you have an account with us?" Michael nodded. "I do, actually. Several, but I'm not here for my accounts today." Rebecca's smile tightened even more. "What exactly are you here for then, sir?" The way she said "sir" made it sound like anything but a sign of respect. Michael had heard that tone before, too many times to count. "I have a meeting," Michael said simply, though it wasn't exactly true. He didn't have a scheduled meeting, but he did plan to check in with the branch manager, who reported directly to him. Thomas crossed his arms. "A meeting with whom? I don't see any appointments in our system for someone matching your description." Michael raised an eyebrow. "My description? We have strict security protocols," Rebecca cut in quickly. "You understand. Perhaps you'd like to make an appointment for another day. When you're more prepared for a meeting?" Michael looked down at his running clothes, then back up at them. "I understand I'm dressed casually, but I assure you, my business here is legitimate, sir," Thomas said, his voice taking on an edge. "There's a Hamilton Financial branch on Wilson Street that might be more suitable for your banking needs. They handle more personal accounts there." Michael knew Wilson Street well. It was in a predominantly black neighborhood across town. The implication was clear as day. "I'm here to see Lisa Chen," Michael said, naming the branch manager. "She's expecting me." Another small lie, but he was curious to see how they'd respond. Rebecca tapped quickly at her computer. "Ms. Chen doesn't have any appointments this morning." "It was arranged last minute," Michael explained, his patience beginning to wear thin. "I'm going to have to ask you to leave," Thomas said flatly. "Unless you have actual banking business to conduct today? A withdrawal or deposit, perhaps?" A few other customers had entered the bank now. An older white couple was immediately greeted warmly by another staff member and escorted to the customer service desk without question. A young white woman in yoga pants, dressed no more formally than Michael, walked right past them toward the loan officer's desk, receiving only smiles. Michael took note of all this, his face revealing nothing. Years of business negotiations had taught him to keep his emotions in check, especially in situations like this one. "I see," Michael said quietly. "And if I told you I work here?" Rebecca laughed, a short dismissive sound. "Sir, we know all the employees at this branch. Not all of them, apparently," Michael murmured. Thomas stepped out from behind the desk now, moving closer to Michael. He was at least 4 inches taller and used his height to try to intimidate. "Look, I'm going to have to insist you leave now, or I'll call security." Michael held his ground, looking up at Thomas without flinching. "You're making a mistake." "The mistake," Thomas said coldly, "was letting you in without asking for ID in the first place. This is a financial institution, not a gym." A security guard had noticed the confrontation and was already moving their way. Michael saw people starting to stare. This wasn't how he wanted to start his day, and making a scene wouldn't help anyone. "All right," Michael said, raising his hand slightly. "I'll go. But remember this conversation. Is there a problem here?" the guard asked, his hand resting casually near his holster. "No problem," Michael said calmly. "I was just leaving," Rebecca smiled triumphantly. The Wilson Street branch opens at 9. They might be more helpful there. Michael looked at her for a long moment, memorizing her face, her name tag, everything about her. Then he did the same with Thomas. He wouldn't forget them. And soon they wouldn't forget him either. "Have a nice day," Michael said, turning to leave. As he pushed through the glass doors back into the morning sunshine, Michael pulled out his phone. He tapped on a contact labeled Executive Assistant and waited as it rang. "Good morning, Mr. Taylor," came the cheerful voice of his assistant. "David." "Morning, David," Michael replied, his voice calm despite the anger simmering beneath the surface. "Can you do me a favor? I need you to call Lisa Chen at the downtown branch. Tell her I'd like to join the branch review meeting tomorrow morning. And David, make sure the entire staff is there. No exceptions, and of course, sir. Is everything all right?" Michael watched through the glass as Rebecca and Thomas returned to their posts, already laughing together about something. "Probably him." "Everything's fine," Michael said. "But some changes are coming to the downtown branch. Significant ones." He ended the call and took a deep breath of the fresh morning air. In his 20-year career, from his start as a junior financial analyst to building 3 successful fintech companies, to now running one of the largest banks in the country, Michael had faced prejudice more times than he could count. Sometimes it was subtle, being mistaken for waiting staff at business dinners or having people surprised by his articulate speech. Other times it was blatant, like today. 20 years ago, this kind of treatment would have left him angry for days, questioning whether he belonged in these spaces at all. Now at 45, with more money than he could spend in 3 lifetimes and enough power to reshape an entire industry, Michael knew better. This wasn't about him or his worth. It was about a system that needed changing, one small piece at a time if necessary. He glanced back at the bank one more time. The Hamilton Financial logo gleamed in the sunlight, a stylized H that was meant to represent stability and trust. Tomorrow, Rebecca and Thomas would learn exactly who they had turned away. But more importantly, every employee at that branch would learn what kind of company Michael intended Hamilton Financial to be going forward. As he walked back toward his apartment, Michael mentally rearranged his schedule for the day. He'd need to review the branch's customer service metrics, look at security footage, and prepare his remarks for tomorrow. It would be a busy day, but an important one. Sometimes change came from quiet conversations in boardrooms. And sometimes it came from moments like this, uncomfortable encounters that revealed exactly what needed fixing. Either way, Michael Taylor was ready to lead that change, starting with the downtown branch of Hamilton Financial Bank. Just before he rounded the corner, his phone buzzed with a text from David. "Meeting confirmed for 9 a.m. tomorrow. All staff will be present." Michael smiled for the first time since entering the bank. Tomorrow would be interesting indeed. Michael Taylor stepped out of the shower in his downtown penthouse apartment, the frustration from the morning's bank incident still lingering in his mind. After toweling off and dressing in a perfectly tailored charcoal suit, he caught his reflection in the floor-to-ceiling windows. At 45, he cut an impressive figure, tall, fit, with close-cropped salt and pepper hair and eyes that seemed to see everything. The running helped keep him sharp, both mentally and physically. 20 years ago, he was just a young financial analyst with big dreams and a student loan balance that kept him up at night. Now he was the CEO of Hamilton Financial, brought in by the board 6 months ago to modernize a century-old institution that was losing ground to more innovative competitors. His phone buzzed. It was David, his executive assistant. "Mr. Taylor, your car is waiting downstairs. I've moved your 10 a.m. to next week and cleared time for you to review the downtown branch data before your afternoon meetings." "Thanks." "David, I'm on my way." In the elevator down to the lobby, Michael mentally prepared for the day ahead. What had happened at the bank wasn't just about him. It represented something systemic that needed addressing throughout the entire organization. The board had hired him not just for his financial expertise but for his vision of what banking could be. Inclusive, forward-thinking, and customer-centered regardless of who walked through the door. The sleek black car waited at the curb. His driver, Anthony, opened the door with a smile. "Morning, Mr. Taylor. Straight to the office today?" "Yes, Anthony. And let's take the route past the downtown branch, please." As they drove through the morning traffic, Michael watched the city wake up. Street vendors setting up, people hurrying to work, the everyday rhythm of urban life. When they passed Hamilton Financial's downtown branch, he studied it carefully. The imposing stone building had stood there since 1927, a testament to stability and tradition. Perhaps too much tradition. At headquarters, Michael bypassed the executive elevator and took the main one, nodding and greeting employees as he went. Some looked surprised to see the CEO in their elevator. Others smiled and chatted casually. This was part of his management style, being visible, accessible, breaking down the walls between the executive suite and everyone else. David met him at the elevator on the top floor, tablet in hand, ready to brief him as they walked. I've pulled the customer service metrics for the downtown branch over the last year. Employee reviews and security footage from this morning as you requested. The branch manager, Lisa Chen, called to confirm tomorrow's meeting. She seemed surprised but didn't ask questions. Perfect. Let's use the conference room. In the glass-walled conference room, Michael loosened his tie and settled in for a deep dive into the data. David brought coffee and left him to it. The numbers told an interesting story. Under Lisa Chen's management, the downtown branch had strong overall performance metrics, but drilling deeper revealed troubling patterns. Accounts opened by Black and Latino customers were significantly lower than the neighborhood demographics would predict. Customer satisfaction surveys showed a marked difference in how various customers rated their experience. Interesting, Michael murmured, making notes on his tablet. Next, he turned to the security footage from that morning. David had already queued it up. Michael watched himself enter the bank, approach the welcome desk, and interact with Rebecca and Thomas. He noted their body language, the subtle shift when he first approached, the exchanged glances. Then he continued watching after his departure. The footage confirmed what he'd observed in person. The older white couple received immediate attention. The young white woman in yoga clothes, dressed just as casually as he had been, walked right through to the loan department without question. A well-dressed Asian man was directed politely to the investment advisor's office. Most telling was what happened 20 minutes after Michael left. A young black woman in business attire entered and approached Rebecca's desk. Though she was dressed professionally, Rebecca's body language showed the same tension. After a brief conversation, the woman was directed to take a seat in the waiting area, where she remained for 17 minutes before anyone assisted her. Michael rewatched key segments, taking detailed notes. This wasn't just about him or his experience. It was about a pattern, a culture that needed changing. He pressed the intercom. "David, can you come in for a minute?" David appeared almost instantly, ever efficient. "Yes, Mr. Taylor? I need employee files for Rebecca Wilson and Thomas Clark from the downtown branch. And can you pull the diversity and inclusion training materials currently in use across the company? Right away. Anything else?" Michael tapped his pen against his notepad. "Yes. Contact HR and ask them to send me data on employee demographics across all branches, and set up a meeting with the head of HR for this afternoon." As David left, Michael turned to the window, looking out over the city skyline. Hamilton Financial had branches in every neighborhood, serving a diverse client base. But the company culture hadn't kept pace with the changing world. The board had brought him in for his innovative approach to banking. But perhaps his most important contribution would be cultural. His phone rang, Lisa Chen calling directly. "Good morning. Lisa, thanks for accommodating the schedule change tomorrow." "Of course. Mr. Taylor," she replied, her voice professional but curious. "May I ask what prompted this visit? Is there something specific you'd like to address?" Michael considered how much to reveal. "I had an interesting experience at your branch this morning. I'd like to discuss it with the team." A pause. "You were here this morning? I don't recall seeing you." "That's part of what we need to discuss," Michael said simply. "I'll see you tomorrow at 9. After ending the call, he returned to the data, looking for patterns, preparing his approach for tomorrow. This wasn't about punishment. It was about education, awareness, and changing a culture that had been allowed to develop unchecked for too long. By late afternoon, Michael had met with the head of HR, reviewed the company's outdated diversity training materials, and drafted an outline for a new company-wide initiative. The HR director, initially defensive, had become increasingly uncomfortable as Michael shared the footage from that morning. "This isn't an isolated incident," Michael had explained. "The data shows it's happening across multiple branches, affecting both customers and employees. We're losing business and talent because of it. Now, as evening approached, David knocked on the conference room door. "You've been at it all day. Can I get you anything?" Michael stretched, realizing he'd been hunched over his work for hours. "No, I'm good. Just finalizing my notes for tomorrow. The car's ready whenever you are." And Lisa Chen called again. "She seems nervous." Michael smiled slightly. "She should be. Not because she's in trouble, but because things are about to change dramatically at her branch." On the drive home, Michael reviewed his presentation for the morning meeting. He'd decided not to single out Rebecca and Thomas immediately. This wasn't about public shaming. It was about addressing a deeper issue. They were symptoms of a problem, not the problem itself. As the car pulled up to his building, Anthony turned to him. "Same time tomorrow, Mr. Taylor." "Earlier, actually. I need to be at the downtown branch by 8:30. "The one we passed this morning?" "The very same." In his apartment, Michael shed his suit jacket and poured himself a small glass of scotch. The sun was setting over the city, casting long shadows across his living room. Tomorrow would be challenging but necessary. He thought about his parents, his father who had worked 2 jobs to put him through college, his mother who had taught him to hold his head high no matter what. They had prepared him for a world that wouldn't always welcome him with open arms, but they had also taught him to be an agent of change when given the opportunity. His phone buzzed with a text from David. "Everything's set for tomorrow. The tech team will have the presentation ready and all staff will be present." Michael replied with a simple "thank you," and returned to the window, watching the city lights come alive as darkness fell. Tomorrow, Rebecca and Thomas would learn who he was. But more importantly, everyone at that branch would learn what kind of company Hamilton Financial was going to become under his leadership. He had been brought in to transform a traditional bank into a modern financial institution. That transformation would now begin with the most important aspect of any business: how people were treated when they walked through the door. Michael finished his scotch and set the glass down. He wasn't angry anymore. He was focused, determined. This was why he had accepted this position in the first place, to make real change from the inside. Sometimes change came from unexpected moments, like being turned away from your own bank because of how you looked. Tomorrow would be the first step in a much larger journey, not just for the downtown branch, but for Hamilton Financial as a whole. And Michael Taylor was ready to lead the way. The downtown branch of Hamilton Financial hummed with nervous energy at 8:45 the next morning. Word had spread quickly that the CEO himself would be attending their regular branch review, something unprecedented in the bank's recent history. Lisa Chen, the branch manager, paced near the conference room entrance, checking her watch every few minutes. She had arranged extra chairs, ordered coffee and pastries, and made sure every surface gleamed. In her 15 years with Hamilton Financial, she had never met the new CEO in person. His reputation preceded him: brilliant, innovative, demanding, but fair. The board had brought him in to shake things up, and in his 6 months at the helm, he had already made waves throughout the organization. "Is everything ready?" she asked her assistant for the 3rd time in 10 minutes. "Yes, Ms. Chen. The presentation is loaded, the room is set up, and all staff members are accounted for except..." "Except what?" "Rebecca and Thomas aren't here yet." Lisa checked her watch again. "C50. Call them. Now." In the employee break room, the staff whispered among themselves, speculation running wild. "I heard he's planning to close underperforming branches," one loan officer murmured. "My cousin works at headquarters. She says he's been reviewing every department looking for redundancies," another added. The conversation ceased abruptly as Lisa entered. "Everyone to the conference room, please. Mr. Taylor will be here any minute." As the employees filed in, taking seats around the large table and along the walls, Lisa's assistant hurried over. "Rebecca just arrived. She's on her way up." Thomas called to say he's running 5 minutes late. Traffic. Lisa closed her eyes briefly, composing herself. "Fine. Just get them in here as quickly and quietly as possible." At precisely 9 a.m., David, the CEO's executive assistant, entered the room. Tall, impeccably dressed with an air of quiet efficiency, he commanded attention immediately. "Good morning," he said. "Mr. Taylor will join you momentarily. Please be seated." Lisa stepped forward. "We're just waiting on one more team member." The door opened and Thomas rushed in, slightly out of breath. "Sorry I'm late, Miss Chen. The traffic was..." He stopped abruptly. Noticing David, "Please take a seat," David said, gesturing to an empty chair. Thomas slipped into it just as Rebecca entered, smoothing her hair and straightening her name tag. The room fell silent, all eyes on the door, waiting. Lisa stood at the head of the table, hands clasped tightly to hide their slight tremor. At 9:05 exactly, the door opened again, and Michael Taylor walked in. He was not what most of them had expected. In his perfectly tailored navy suit, crisp white shirt, and subtle gold tie clip, he carried himself with a quiet confidence that immediately filled the room. His presence was commanding without being intimidating, the mark of someone comfortable with their authority. Several employees straightened in their seats. Lisa stepped forward with her hand extended. "Mr. Taylor, welcome to the downtown branch. I'm Lisa Chen, branch manager. It's an honor to have you join our review meeting today." Michael shook her hand firmly. "Thank you, Lisa. I appreciate you accommodating my last-minute request." His eyes scanned the room slowly, taking in each face. When his gaze passed over Rebecca and Thomas, there was no change in his expression, no indication that he recognized them. "Before we begin," Michael said, moving to the head of the table where a laptop was connected to the room's large screen, "I'd like to introduce myself properly to those I haven't met. I've been CEO of Hamilton Financial for 6 months now, though I've been in banking and fintech for over 20 years. He paused, his eyes moving across the room again. "I believe in experiencing our company at all levels. That's why I make a habit of visiting branches unannounced, sometimes posing as a customer to see how our services are delivered firsthand." A murmur rippled through the room. Lisa's eyes widened slightly. "Yesterday morning, I stopped by this branch after my morning run." Michael tapped a key on the laptop and the screen behind him came to life, showing security footage of him entering the bank in his running clothes. The color drained from Rebecca's face. Beside her, Thomas went very still. "I'd like to share what happened next," Michael continued, his voice calm and measured. The room watched in silence as the security footage played, showing Michael's interaction with Rebecca and Thomas, their dismissive treatment, and his eventual removal from the bank. The footage continued, showing the differential treatment of other customers who entered after him. When the video ended, the silence in the room was absolute. Michael looked directly at Rebecca and Thomas now. "I believe you two and I have met before." Rebecca's voice was barely audible. "Mr. Taylor, we didn't know who you were." "That's precisely the point," Michael replied. "You didn't know who I was, so you made assumptions based on how I looked. The question is, would knowing my identity have changed how you treated me?" Thomas shifted uncomfortably. "Sir, we have security protocols. Do those protocols include directing customers to branches in other neighborhoods based on their race?" Michael asked, his tone still even. "Do they include making customers wait 17 minutes for service while others are helped immediately?" He gestured to the footage still frozen on the screen, showing the young black woman in business attire waiting in the lobby. Lisa Chen looked stricken. "Mr. Taylor, I had no idea this was happening." "I assure you," Michael raised a hand gently, "this isn't just about yesterday, Lisa, and it's not just about this branch." He tapped the laptop again and the screen changed to show data charts. "These are customer service metrics across all Hamilton Financial branches. Notice the patterns in wait times, account approvals, and customer satisfaction ratings when broken down by demographic groups. The data painted a clear picture of systemic inequities throughout the organization. I'm not here to point fingers or assign blame." Michael continued, "I'm here because this represents a failure at all levels of our organization, from our hiring practices to our training to our corporate culture. And that's something I intend to address starting today." He moved away from the laptop, walking slowly around the table. Hamilton Financial was founded 100 years ago with the mission statement, "Banking for all." Somewhere along the way, we lost sight of what that means. Michael stopped behind Rebecca and Thomas's chairs. "When I was asked to lead this company, I accepted because I saw an opportunity to transform not just our technological systems, but our entire approach to banking. What happened yesterday confirmed how necessary that transformation is." Rebecca was fighting back tears now. Thomas stared straight ahead, jaw tight. "Today marks the beginning of significant changes at Hamilton Financial," Michael announced, addressing the entire room again. "First, we're implementing a comprehensive training program on unconscious bias and inclusive customer service for every employee. from entry level to the executive suite, myself included. He returned to the front of the room. Second, we're revising our performance metrics to include diversity and inclusion measures. Branches and departments will be evaluated not just on their financial performance, but on how equitably they serve all customers. Lisa nodded, still looking shaken but now focused, taking notes. Third, we're creating a mystery shopper program to regularly assess customer experiences across all demographics. And fourth, we're establishing an inclusion council with representatives from every level of the organization to guide our ongoing efforts. Michael paused, looking around the room. Some employees appeared uncomfortable, others thoughtful. A few nodded in agreement. I want to be clear, he continued. This isn't about political correctness. It's about good business. When we fail to welcome every potential customer, we lose business. When we create an environment where employees feel excluded or marginalized, we lose talent. This is about making Hamilton Financial the best bank it can be for everyone. He turned to Lisa. Ms. Chen, I'd like you to take the lead on implementing these changes at this branch. David will connect you with the resources you'll need. Yes, sir, Lisa said firmly. I'm committed to making this right. Michael nodded, then finally addressed Rebecca and Thomas directly. As for you two, I'd like to meet with you privately after this meeting. Not to punish you, but to understand. Your perspective is important to this process. The meeting continued for another hour, as Michael outlined the specifics of his plan, answered questions, and listened to concerns from the staff. By the end, the atmosphere had shifted from tense apprehension to cautious engagement. Not everyone was comfortable with the changes being proposed, but no one could deny the evidence they'd been shown. As the meeting wound down, Michael made one final point. Change isn't easy, and it doesn't happen overnight. There will be missteps along the way. What matters is that we acknowledge them, learn from them, and keep moving forward. Hamilton Financial has the potential to be a leader in this industry, not just in financial innovation, but in creating a truly inclusive banking experience. I'm counting on every one of you to be part of that journey. After the meeting, as promised, Michael met privately with Rebecca and Thomas in Lisa's office. Rebecca entered first, her usual confidence replaced by obvious anxiety. Please sit down, Michael said, his tone professional but not unkind. Rebecca perched on the edge of her chair. Mr. Taylor, I want to apologize for what happened yesterday. It was completely unprofessional and I'm deeply sorry. Michael studied her for a moment. Tell me, Rebecca, why did you direct me to the Wilson Street branch? She looked down at her hands. I don't know. It just seemed. I thought. You thought it would be a better fit for me, Michael finished for her. Based on what? Rebecca couldn't meet his eyes. Based on how you looked, she admitted quietly. And how I looked was casual, she said quickly. You were in running clothes and we catered to a more professional clientele here. Is that why the young woman in yoga clothes received immediate service? Michael asked. Rebecca had no answer for that. Thomas entered next, his demeanor much less contrite. He sat stiffly, arms crossed. Mr. Taylor, he began. I was just following our security protocols. This is a financial institution. We have to be careful about who we allow access to. And what about me suggested I was a security risk, Thomas? Thomas shifted uncomfortably. Your attire was inappropriate for a business setting. Yet you didn't stop other casually dressed customers, Michael pointed out. The security footage is quite clear on that point. That was different, Thomas insisted. How so? Thomas couldn't articulate an answer that didn't reveal his biases. Michael leaned forward. Here's what I believe happened. You both made snap judgments based on appearance, specifically race. You might not have been conscious of it, but your actions speak for themselves. Neither could deny it. Starting tomorrow, Michael continued, you'll both participate in our new training program. I'm not firing you because this isn't just about you. It's about a culture that allowed these attitudes to develop and persist. But I need to know if you're willing to be part of the solution going forward. Rebecca nodded immediately. Yes, sir. I want to learn and do better. Thomas hesitated longer before finally nodding. I'll participate in the training. Michael stood. Good. Because Hamilton Financial is changing and I need every employee to either change with it or find somewhere else to work. The choice is yours. As he left the branch that morning, Michael knew this was just the beginning. Changing a corporate culture was one of the hardest things to do in business. Some would resist. Others would only go through the motions. But some, perhaps many, would embrace the opportunity to be part of something better. Real change would take time, persistence, and consistent leadership. Fortunately, Michael Taylor had all three in abundance, and it had all started with being kicked out of his own bank. 2 weeks had passed since the memorable morning when Michael Taylor revealed himself as the CEO to the startled staff of Hamilton Financial's downtown branch. The initial shock had given way to a flurry of activity as the promised changes began taking shape across the organization. Michael sat in his office on the top floor of the headquarters building, reviewing reports from the newly formed Inclusion Council. The early data was promising but showed just how much work lay ahead. He looked up as David knocked on his open door. "Ms. Chen is here for her appointment," David announced. "Send her in, please." Lisa Chen entered, carrying a tablet and looking more confident than she had that morning 2 weeks ago. The initial shame of discovering what had been happening under her watch had transformed into determination to fix the problems in her branch. "Good morning, Mr. Taylor," she said, taking a seat across from him. "Lisa, good to see you. How are things progressing downtown?" She placed her tablet on the desk and pulled up a set of charts. "We've completed the first phase of the training program. Most of the staff has been receptive, though we've had some resistance." "From Thomas," Michael guessed. Lisa nodded. "He's participating, but minimally. Rebecca, on the other hand, has surprised me. She's become one of our most engaged team members." "People can surprise you," Michael said, leaning back in his chair. "Sometimes being confronted with your own biases is exactly what you need to grow." "How are the customer metrics looking?" "It's early, but we're seeing improvement in satisfaction ratings across all demographic groups. Wait times are more consistent now that we've implemented the new queuing system that removes visual bias from the process." Michael nodded approvingly. "And the mystery shopper program? We've had 3 visits so far. 2 showed excellent service regardless of the shopper's appearance or background. 1 revealed ongoing issues with a particular teller who's now receiving additional coaching." They continued discussing the changes for nearly an hour. Lisa had embraced her role in the transformation, showing genuine commitment to creating an inclusive environment at her branch. "There's one more thing," Lisa said as their meeting was wrapping up. "I'd like you to meet with Rebecca. She's asked specifically to speak with you." Michael raised an eyebrow. "Has she? That's interesting. Schedule it for tomorrow if possible." After Lisa left, Michael turned to the window looking out over the city. The changes at Hamilton Financial were just beginning, but already he could feel the shift in energy. Some executives had pushed back, arguing that the new initiatives were unnecessary distractions from the real business of banking. Michael had stood firm, presenting the data that showed how inclusive practices improved customer retention and attracted new business. The next morning, Rebecca arrived at headquarters precisely 5 minutes early for her appointment. Her hands fidgeted slightly as David showed her into Michael's office. "Thank you for seeing me, Mr. Taylor," she said, her voice steadier than he expected. "Have a seat, Rebecca. Lisa tells me you've been very engaged with the new training program." Rebecca sat smoothing her skirt nervously. "Yes, sir. It's been eye-opening." "In what way?" Michael asked, genuinely curious. She took a deep breath. "I've always considered myself a fair person. I grew up in a diverse neighborhood. I have friends from different backgrounds. I never thought of myself as biased." Michael nodded, letting her continue. "But the training made me realize how many assumptions I make without even being aware of them. How I categorize people instantly based on appearance, accent, even names. And then I treat them differently because of those categories." "That's a difficult realization to come to," Michael acknowledged. "It is," Rebecca agreed. "At first I was defensive. I kept thinking about that morning, trying to justify my actions. But eventually, I had to admit that if you'd been a white man in running clothes, I wouldn't have directed you to another branch." Her honesty was refreshing. Michael leaned forward. "So what changed for you?" "The data," she said simply. "When I saw the patterns in how different customers were treated, I couldn't deny it anymore. And then the exercises we did in training, the conversations we had, it made me see banking differently." "How so?" Rebecca's eyes lit up with unexpected passion. "Banking isn't just about money. It's about access to opportunity. When we create barriers for certain people, We're limiting their ability to build wealth, start businesses, buy homes. We're perpetuating inequalities that have existed for generations. Michael couldn't hide his surprise. This was not the same woman who had dismissed him from the bank 2 weeks ago. That's exactly right, he said. Banking has historically been one of the most powerful tools for either expanding or limiting opportunity in our society. That's why I wanted to meet with you, Rebecca continued, gaining confidence. I have some ideas for our branch that go beyond the current initiatives. She outlined her proposal, a community outreach program specifically designed to build relationships with local businesses and residents in underserved areas, financial literacy workshops open to the public, and a mentoring program for young people interested in careers in finance. The training opened my eyes, she explained, but I want to do more than just avoid making mistakes. I want to be part of making positive change. By the end of their meeting, Michael had approved her proposal and assigned her to work with the Inclusion Council to develop it further. As Rebecca left his office, Michael reflected on the unexpected turn of events. He had hoped the training would improve behavior, but he hadn't anticipated it would inspire this level of commitment. Later that afternoon, Michael received another visit, this time from Thomas. Unlike Rebecca, he arrived with a defensive posture, arms crossed even before he sat down. You wanted to see me, Mr. Taylor? Yes, Thomas. I've been reviewing the progress reports from the downtown branch. Lisa mentions you've been participating in the training program, but she has concerns about your level of engagement. Thomas shifted in his seat. I've attended every session as required. Attendance isn't the same as engagement, Michael pointed out. May I ask what you think of the program so far? Thomas's jaw tightened. Honestly, I think it's unnecessary. We're a bank, not a social justice organization. Our job is to protect our customers' money and provide financial services, not to worry about everyone's feelings. Michael nodded, keeping his expression neutral. I understand that perspective, but let me ask you this. Do you believe all customers deserve the same level of service regardless of their appearance? Of course, Thomas said quickly. I've never discriminated against anyone. Michael pulled up the security footage from that morning on his tablet and turned it to face Thomas. Then how do you explain this? And the dozens of other examples we've documented? Thomas watched the footage, his discomfort evident. That was a misunderstanding. You weren't dressed appropriately for a business environment. And yet other casually dressed customers received service without question, Michael pointed out. The data doesn't lie, Thomas. There's a clear pattern of differential treatment based on race at your branch. The question is, are you willing to acknowledge that and work to change it? Thomas was silent for a long moment. With all due respect, Mr. Taylor, I think this whole initiative is an overreaction to a single incident. You're the CEO, so obviously what happened to you was unacceptable. But to change our entire approach because of it seems excessive. Michael leaned back, studying Thomas carefully. This isn't about a single incident. It's about a pattern that affects thousands of customers every day across our entire organization. It's about living up to our mission statement of banking for all. And ultimately, it's about good business. When we welcome every customer, we grow. When we exclude people, we shrink. Thomas remained unconvinced. I've worked in banking for 12 years. I know how things work. Perhaps that's the problem, Michael suggested. Banking has worked a certain way for a long time, but that doesn't mean it's the right way or the only way. Sometimes it takes an outsider's perspective to see the flaws in a system. The conversation continued, with Thomas growing increasingly defensive, as Michael calmly presented evidence of the problems and the business case for addressing them. By the end, it was clear they had reached an impasse. Thomas, I'll be direct with you, Michael said finally. Hamilton Financial is changing. These new initiatives aren't optional, and they aren't temporary. They represent the future direction of this company. I need every employee, especially those in customer-facing roles, to be fully committed to that direction. Thomas sat stiffly. And if I'm not? Then you'll need to decide if this is still the right place for you to work, Michael said simply. I don't want to lose good employees, but I need people who are aligned with our values moving forward. After Thomas left, Michael received a call from Lisa Chen. How did it go with Thomas? She asked. About as expected, Michael replied. He's resistant to the changes. Give him another week with the training program. But if he continues to disengage, we may need to consider other options. And Rebecca? Michael smiled. She surprised me. Her community outreach proposal has real potential. I've assigned her to work with the Inclusion Council to develop it further. I thought you might say that, Lisa said. She's been our most vocal advocate for the new initiatives. It's like something clicked for her during the training. People can change when given the right information and motivation, Michael observed. Not everyone, but many. The following weeks brought more changes to Hamilton Financial. The training program expanded across all branches. The Mystery Shopper program revealed both problems and successes. The newly formed Inclusion Council, with representatives from every level of the organization, met weekly to review progress and suggest improvements. Michael made a point of visiting different branches regularly, sometimes still in his running clothes, testing how the culture was evolving. The results were mixed but trending positive. Some branches embraced the changes enthusiastically. Others showed minimal improvement, requiring more attention and resources. 1 month after the initial incident, Michael visited the downtown branch again. The difference was immediately apparent. The welcome desk, once staffed by Rebecca and Thomas, now featured Rebecca and a new face, a young man named Kevin who greeted every customer with the same warm smile regardless of appearance. "Mr. Taylor," Rebecca said, recognizing him instantly despite his casual attire. "Good morning. Are you here to see Lisa?" "Just dropping by to see how things are going," Michael replied, noting the change in her demeanor. "Where's Thomas today?" Rebecca's smile faltered slightly. "He left last week. Took a position at First National across town." Michael nodded, unsurprised. "And how are you finding your new role with the community outreach program?" Her face lit up. "It's been amazing. We held our first financial literacy workshop last weekend. 27 people attended, and we've already had 5 of them come in to open accounts or apply for small business loans." As they talked, Michael observed the lobby. Customers of all backgrounds were being helped promptly and professionally. The tense, exclusive atmosphere he'd felt on his first visit had been replaced by something more welcoming. Later, in Lisa's office, she shared the latest metrics. Customer satisfaction is up across all demographics. New accounts have increased by 12%. Even our existing customers are expanding their relationships with us. More savings accounts, more loan applications, more investment services. "And the staff?" Michael asked. "We lost Thomas and 2 others who weren't comfortable with the changes, but we've added 5 new team members who are fully aligned with our direction. Morale is higher than I've seen in years," Michael smiled. "It turns out doing the right thing is also good for business." Who would have thought? As he left the branch that day, Michael reflected on how a single negative experience had catalyzed meaningful change throughout an entire organization. The transformation was far from complete. Culture change was a marathon, not a sprint, but Hamilton Financial was on a new path, one that truly lived up to its century-old promise of banking for all. And it had all started because 2 employees had made assumptions about a man in running clothes, not knowing he was the CEO who would transform their company. 6 months had passed since that fateful morning when Michael Taylor was turned away from his own bank. The spring sunshine streamed through the windows of Hamilton Financial's downtown branch, catching the new welcome sign that read "Banking for All" in bold, welcoming letters. The branch looked different now. The imposing marble counters that once created a barrier between staff and customers had been replaced with more accessible service stations. Digital screens displayed information in multiple languages. A children's area in the corner kept little ones entertained, while parents conducted their banking business. The atmosphere felt warmer, more inviting. Michael pulled open the glass door, dressed once again in running clothes, gray shorts, a light blue performance shirt, and his favorite running shoes. He had just completed his regular 5-mile route through the park and decided to stop by the downtown branch, something he now did regularly at different locations throughout the city. The welcome desk was staffed by Kevin, the young man who had replaced Thomas, and a new face, a woman with warm brown skin and a bright smile. "Good morning," she greeted him, making direct eye contact. "Welcome to Hamilton Financial. How can we help you today?" Michael smiled. She didn't recognize him, which was perfect. "I'm thinking about opening an account," he said. "Could someone tell me about your options?" "Absolutely," she replied without hesitation. "I'm Angela, by the way. Would you prefer to speak with someone right now? Or would you like to freshen up first? We have a customer lounge with refreshments if you'd like a moment. The thoughtful offer, acknowledging his post-run state without making him feel unwelcome, was exactly the kind of service the new training emphasized. That would be great, thank you, Michael said. A glass of water would be perfect. Right this way, Angela said, leading him to a comfortable seating area. Someone will be with you in just a moment. And there's a water station right over there. As Michael sipped his water, he observed the branch in action. Customers of all backgrounds were being helped with equal attention and respect. The staff moved efficiently but never seemed rushed. Conversations happened in English, Spanish, Mandarin, and what sounded like Vietnamese. Mr. Taylor, Michael turned to see Rebecca approaching, her face lighting up with recognition. In the 6 months since their memorable encounter, she had transformed from the person who had dismissed him to one of the bank's most passionate advocates for inclusive service. Rebecca, good to see you, he said, standing to shake her hand. I was just testing the waters. Angela didn't recognize me. Rebecca smiled. She's new, just finished her training last week. But even if she had recognized you, I'm confident you would have received the same welcome. It's how we do things now. I've been hearing good things about your community outreach program, Michael said. Lisa tells me you've extended it to 3 more neighborhoods. Pride flashed across Rebecca's face. We have. The financial literacy workshops are consistently at capacity now. We've helped over 200 people open their first bank accounts. And our small business loan program for underserved entrepreneurs has been so successful that 2 other banks in the city are creating similar initiatives. Walk with me, Michael said, gesturing toward Lisa Chen's office. Tell me more about what you're seeing on the front lines. As they walked, Rebecca pointed out the various changes to the branch, not just physical alterations, but operational ones as well. We've adjusted our hours to better serve working people. We've simplified our forms and reduced unnecessary requirements that created barriers. We've hired staff who reflect the communities we serve. Lisa looked up from her desk as they entered her office, smiling broadly. Mr. Taylor, what a nice surprise. And in your running clothes again, I see. Old habits, Michael said with a chuckle, though the reception was quite different this time. The 3 of them spent the next hour discussing the branch's transformation. The changes hadn't always been easy. Some longtime customers had been resistant, preferring the old way of doing things. A few had even taken their business elsewhere. But for every customer lost, 5 new ones had come in, attracted by the bank's growing reputation for inclusive service. The numbers speak for themselves, Lisa said, pulling up the latest performance metrics on her tablet. Deposits are up 23% compared to this time last year. Loan originations have increased 31%. Customer satisfaction scores are at an all-time high across all demographic groups. Michael nodded appreciatively. And how has the staff adapted overall? There was definitely an adjustment period, Lisa admitted. Beyond Thomas and the others who left early on, we had a few who initially went through the motions without really buying in. But as they've seen the positive results, most have become genuine believers in what we're doing. Rebecca's leadership has been crucial, Lisa added, glancing at the younger woman. Having someone who experienced her own transformation has made it easier for others to follow that path. Rebecca looked down modestly. I just share my experience honestly, how I had to confront my own biases and recognize the harm they were causing. Not just to customers, but to myself. I was limiting my own growth by holding on to those old attitudes. After their meeting, Michael walked through the branch again, stopping to chat with several employees and customers. The change in culture was palpable, not just in how people behaved, but in how the space felt. What had once been an intimidating institution designed to impress now felt like a place designed to welcome and serve. Outside, David waited beside the black car. Good visit? He asked as Michael approached. Very good, Michael confirmed. The downtown branch has become our model for the entire organization. In the car, Michael reviewed his schedule for the day. The Inclusion Council was meeting at 11 to discuss expanding the training program to partner institutions. After lunch, he had a presentation for the board of directors, sharing the results of the first 6 months of the initiative. Some board members had been skeptical initially, concerned that the changes would alienate traditional customers or distract from core business objectives. The data had silenced most critics. Hamilton Financial was outperforming competitors across most metrics, and its stock price had risen steadily as the market responded to improved performance and positive press coverage. At headquarters, Michael found the executive floor buzzing with activity. The leadership team that had once been predominantly white and male now reflected a broader range of backgrounds and perspectives. Michael had made several strategic hires and promotions, bringing in talent that had previously been overlooked. "The board package is ready for your review," David said, handing Michael a tablet as they walked toward his office. "And the Chief Diversity Officer candidates will be here tomorrow for final interviews." The creation of the C-level position had been Michael's idea, elevating the importance of diversity and inclusion to the same level as finance, operations, and technology. It sent a clear message about the company's priorities moving forward. The Inclusion Council meeting ran longer than scheduled, with passionate discussions about how to measure the impact of the training program and ways to further improve the customer experience. Michael mostly listened, pleased to see how the council members had taken ownership of the initiative. What had begun as his response to a personal slight had evolved into a company-wide movement, led by employees at all levels. After lunch, Michael presented to the board, sharing both the quantitative results, improved financial performance, and the qualitative changes in company culture. 6 months ago, I stood before you and promised that these changes would not only be the right thing to do, but would also be good for business, Michael reminded them. Today, the numbers speak for themselves. He clicked through slides showing increased market share, improved customer retention, and higher employee satisfaction scores. But beyond the numbers, we've begun to change what banking looks like and feels like for our customers and our staff. We're creating a financial institution that truly lives up to our century-old promise of banking for all. Most board members nodded approvingly, though a few still looked skeptical. Change never convinced everyone, Michael knew. But as long as the business continued to thrive, even the skeptics would go along with it. After the board meeting, Michael returned to his office to find an unexpected visitor waiting. Thomas, his former employee who had left rather than embrace the changes, sat stiffly in one of the guest chairs. "Thomas," Michael said, surprised. "David didn't mention you were here." "I asked him not to," Thomas admitted. "I wasn't sure you'd agree to see me." Michael took a seat across from him. "What can I do for you?" Thomas looked different, less confident, perhaps a bit humbled. "I've been at First National for 5 months now," he began. "They recruited me after hearing I'd left Hamilton. Said they wanted someone who understood traditional banking values." Michael nodded, saying nothing. "At first it seemed like a good fit," Thomas continued. "Things were done the old way, the way I was used to. But recently they've been losing customers, to Hamilton Financial mainly. People are talking about your new approach, the community programs, the improved service. And how do you feel about that?" Michael asked. Thomas sighed. "Conflicted. I didn't believe in what you were doing. I thought it was unnecessary, even harmful to the business. But the results are undeniable. Hamilton is growing while First National is shrinking. Is that why you're here? Business results?" "Partly," Thomas admitted. "But also, I've been doing some thinking. About that morning, about my reaction to the training program, about my own attitudes." He struggled to find the right words. "I was raised to believe that success comes from following rules, maintaining standards. When you came in dressed in running clothes, I saw it as breaking those standards. But I've had to ask myself why I applied those standards differently to different people." Michael leaned forward, intrigued by Thomas's reflection. "And what conclusion did you reach?" "That I've been wrong," Thomas said simply. "Not just about business strategy, but about people. I've been limiting myself by holding on to outdated ideas." "That's a significant realization," Michael acknowledged. "I know it's probably too late," Thomas said, "but I wanted to apologize for how I behaved, both that morning and during the training program, and I wanted to ask if there might be a place for me at Hamilton Financial again. I'm willing to go through the full training program to really engage with it this time." Michael studied him thoughtfully. Second chances were important, especially for someone showing genuine growth. But actions had consequences, and trust once broken had to be rebuilt. "Here's what I can offer," Michael said finally. "We have an opening at our West Side branch. Entry-level position, less responsibility than you had before. You'd need to complete the training program and demonstrate your commitment to our values through your actions, not just your words. After 6 months, we could reevaluate." Relief washed over Thomas's face. Thank you. That's more than fair. As Thomas left, Michael reflected on how far the company had come in 6 months, and how far some individuals had come as well. Change wasn't just about new policies or programs. It was about people recognizing the need to think and act differently. That evening, Michael attended the graduation ceremony for the first class of Hamilton Financial's Community Banking Academy, a program Rebecca had developed to introduce young people from underserved communities to careers in finance. 25 students, ranging from high school seniors to adults seeking career changes, received certificates and job offers from Hamilton Financial and other participating institutions. Rebecca beamed as she introduced each graduate. She had found her calling in this work, transforming from someone who unconsciously perpetuated exclusion to someone who actively created opportunity for others. After the ceremony, Michael mingled with the graduates and their families. One young woman approached him shyly. "Mr. Taylor? I just wanted to thank you. My mother tried to open an account at Hamilton Financial 2 years ago and was told she didn't have the right documentation. She left feeling humiliated, but when we heard about the changes you were making, she decided to try again. This time, the staff helped her figure out what she needed. She has her first checking account now, at age 45. Stories like this, Michael thought, were the true measure of their success, not just improved metrics but transformed lives. Later that night, as Michael looked out from his penthouse window at the city lights, he thought about how a moment of discrimination had led to widespread positive change. He had experienced countless such moments throughout his life, but this time, he had been in a position to do more than just absorb the slight and move on. He had been able to create systemic change. His phone buzzed with a text from David. "Final numbers for the quarter just came in. We've exceeded projections by 17%. Board will be pleased." Michael smiled. Doing the right thing was proving to be good business indeed. Hamilton Financial was becoming the kind of institution he had always believed it could be, one that truly served all people with equal respect and opportunity. The journey wasn't over. Changing a culture was ongoing work that would require constant vigilance and renewal. Some would resist, others would backslide. New challenges would emerge, but the foundation had been laid for a different kind of banking institution, one that recognized that diversity and inclusion weren't just buzzwords, but essential components of business success, and it had all started because 2 employees had kicked a black man out of the bank, not knowing he was the CEO who would transform the company, and in the process transform them as well.